Welcome back. So the public has been urged to exercise caution when using heating devices as temperatures plunge. The South African Weather Service is warning that bitterly cold conditions will remain in place. That is for the next 3 days. And Ndifuna, Ukwazi, political organizing and campaign head Buhle Booi, joins us now to talk about just how some of the most vulnerable communities are coping in this weather. Buhle, good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Just in the run-up to us seeing this adverse weather hit 8 out of the 9 provinces. I mean, in most parts of the country, it is bitterly, bitterly cold. The question becomes what happens in some of our informal settlements. I know that a fire already having destroyed close to 50 shacks in Khayelitsha already. Perhaps you can talk to us about what you're aware of has taken place in Khayelitsha, how serious the situation is, and your biggest concerns around vulnerable communities in a week like this.
No, thank you very much, Naledi, for inviting us to the show. I think it's very important, firstly, to say that our heart goes out to the families in Khayelitsha that lost their homes due to fire disasters. About 145 people are left without homes currently because of the fires. And we think that this is very sad because every year we see the same scenery in informal settlements in particular. Areas like Silvertown will continuously experience these hardships of being plunged in fire disasters or flooding disasters for that matter. And we think that the municipality is failing the communities, particularly in informal settlements. The city of Cape Town has what we call a disaster risk management plan. And they're meant to be using that to proactively plan for disasters. And there hasn't been adequate work that has been done by the municipality to intervene in hotspots of fires, in hotspots of flooding. We know that it will experience heavy rains just now, and communities will literally be swimming. And this is a matter of life and death because people die, kids die in floods, kids die in fires. And there isn't any seriousness in the context of how the municipality deals with this crisis that we have. So it's quite very saddening to see people without their homes in this very cold weather of Cape Town. And we want to say to the city of Cape Town that it must proactively plan. And it is not only us to proactively plan, but it must intervene proactively in the context of disasters.
Yeah.
We know, for instance, that areas like Maspumelele will catch fire. What plans have been made to mitigate that? We know, for instance, that areas like Island in Khayelitsha will be flooded now because of the heavy rains. But there isn't a plan in terms of relocating people to proper land that is suitable. People will know that in COVID-19 informal settlements, that has about 30,000 households. People will be experiencing floods. But there isn't a plan to relocate the people that are on the flooding plains in those particular areas. So we think that the municipality must deal with this question through releasing public land to make sure that people are in safe areas. And we know areas like Khayelitsha and the rest of informal settlements in Cape Town are highly dense.
Yeah.
And we need to de-densify these areas and make sure that when these communities catch fire, it doesn't affect most people, but also what sort of fire resistant, climate resilient sort of houses and materials do we give to people? How do we make sure that people build with sandbags so that the devastating fires are not as severe as we've seen them? And that's the role that the municipality is meant to be playing, but they're not playing that particular role in informal settlements in particular.
So talk to me then about even then communication going into to areas where you do have the most vulnerable and highly dense communities, Nyanga, Langa, Maspumelele, that and we've seen it over the years when we've got a cold bout, we almost always see a fire coming out of that community. What, if any, communication is given to those communities to say, well, this is what you do have at your own disposal to protect your homes from fire?
So what we've seen happening, Naledi, in the context of Cape Town is that the municipality has been issuing out, communications, warning communities about the severe weather conditions, and telling people to prepare for these weather conditions, and cautioning people about using, gases and how this should be used. Whilst we commend those efforts in terms of public education to communities, we think that it's not enough. It's not enough to tell people that there is danger coming, but we do not do enough to mitigate those dangers. And Naledi, the reality is that in July last year, with about 158,000 people that were affected by disasters, and nearly 48,000 structures were destroyed because of these disasters that we see today. And this adds to the already existing crisis of housing that we have. You know, in particular, in this particular province, over 600,000 people are in the backlog. And when people experience these disasters, that number increases. And the city of Cape Town is saying now that they're not issuing relief kits to communities. And we think that's very problematic. Now communities have to wait on national government on whether they will intervene in terms of disaster relief kits for these communities to rebuild their homes. So I think that's part of the crisis that we have. We need a proactive municipality, not a municipality that only communicates to people through public education, but it must take the necessary actions of de-densifying communities. It must take the necessary actions of providing public land to relocate these communities that are in flooding disasters or fire disasters, and provide materials for these communities that have faced this devastating fire. So there is much work that needs to be done by the municipality in terms of mitigating the pain that people face on a yearly basis. It can't be narrated that every year, it's the same thing. It's the same thing, and the response is the same. The response is that of taking blankets to communities and taking soup to communities because they're sleeping outside. That can't be a pragmatic approach to dealing with these significant issues that leave people homeless. It can't be. Blankets and soup cannot be the only solution that the municipality has to communities that are otherwise without their homes because of these disasters and the lack of proactive planning by the municipality.
Yeah, I do want to put some power back in the hands of residents. Because we can certainly talk about what authorities need to be doing, and it's equally important, but you also want to sense that community members listening to this conversation are able to say, well, this is what I can do to protect the little home that I do have. What are some of those tips that you share with community members over days that are going to just get even more cold as we get deeper into the week?
The reality, Naledi, is that communities must make sure that they keep safe. And I'm saying this also with quite heaviness in my heart in terms of how do people get safe when they're deprived of electricity by the municipality. And what they resorted to is using gases, this very same, and candles that burn their houses, because the very same municipalities is depriving them of reliable source of energy. So that's a conundrum that we're facing, and the contradiction that we're sitting with, that we're wanting to say to communities, be safe, but there isn't necessary support for communities to take the necessary precautions. But we do want to say to the masses of our people, Naledi, that they must make sure that they switch off all gases. They must make sure that candles are switched off when people go to sleep, so that people do not experience these devastating fires.
Yeah.
We want people to keep safe, but also want to say that the municipalities, especially in informal settlements, it must make sure that there is provision of sandbags in the context of the building material of shacks going forward, so that we have climate and fire resistant sort of shacks, we know that's not enough because people are in need of brick and mortar houses.
Right.
But to mitigate situations, at least the municipality must make sure that it invests in material that doesn't catch fire very easily in the context of building shacks with sandbags to mitigate the fire disasters that we see in our communities.
Yeah, Buhle, thank you so much. We really do appreciate your time. Buhle Booi is the head of political organizing and campaigns at Ndifuna Ukwazi, speaking to us about the situation that's faced by vulnerable communities, particularly informal settlements, as we get into a week that is expected to be difficult and bitterly cold.